Spiel 23 opens in less than a week from when I'm recording this video, and is usually the case at this time of year. I can't wait for this annual game fair to open in Essen, Germany, because that means I can stop working on the Spiel preview on Board Game Geek. Don't get me wrong, I love working on the preview, but I'm also tired of it. The Spiel 23 preview contains more than 1,200 items listed on it. Started working on this very early in 2023 as publishers started announcing things. I'll make notes and put stuff in a little email folder, sent out a survey to hundreds of publishers in June, and we've been receiving surveys since that time, and I think we're now through with them. My assistant Stephen Cordell and I have processed roughly 300 surveys, putting all these titles on the preview. There's lots of follow-up questions usually because publisher doesn't have a cover image on a game, so we want to ask them to upload it, or we're not sure which version of a game they're selling, or they don't say whether their demo are selling and they don't include a price, so we have to ask, or the release date for something is 2024 and we just want to verify this is only for demo, or you got advanced copies. All these little details, trying to get all that information out there, and it takes a lot of time. And publishers not on the mailing list, well, there's a note on the preview of how to submit that information, so it ends up going to me in an email. And that's a lot more work. So I do all the email, and Steve and I together work on the surveys. We get all that out there. And now you go. 1,200 items. It's a lot of stuff. Admittedly, 1,200 items. It's not 1,200 distinct items because there will be a game that appears from one publisher in English and another publisher in German. And I'm going to list them both because if you speak German, you probably want to go to the German one. If you don't, maybe you speak English. You're listening to me talking in English, so maybe so. And you'll go to that one instead. Usually, if one publisher does both, I only just include a note available in separate English and German editions, or separate English and French, or whatever it is. Steven tends to list them separately, and if I catch them in time, I collapse them into one listing, so all the thumbs end up in one spot. But don't always get all of them, because it's a lot of titles. So it's not 1,200 new games. There's also expansions on the list. There's also things only being demoed, not sold. But if you take out all the duplicates and the expansions and the demos, it's probably still more than 730 games, which would be 2 games a day for the rest of the year. If you bought everything, you could not possibly play it all. Maybe you could. I don't know. If that was your only job, maybe you could do that. But it's a lot of games to contemplate. And so I'm very thankful for Steven for helping me do that, get all that information out there, and ideally it's helpful for you. Usually I get to preview a lot of games because publishers send me advanced copies, I play stuff, I do videos, I do write-ups, and this year, almost none of that. Pretty much none of that. Because in the past 5 weeks, I think I've played 3 different games. I played the game Extreme with my wife a lot because she loves it, and Circus Flaccati, Reiner Knizia classic card game, and a new edition from Plate that will be a Spiel because I played it with a family and never tried it before. I won because I played it. I know the game. I finally got to play Sunrise Lane, a game that I picked up at Gen Con, a review copy from Horrible Guild. It's another Reiner Knizia design. My wife and son took pity on me because I played almost nothing, and so they played. There you go. It's a nice classic German-style game. On a turn, you either get cards or you play cards and you put buildings on the board. And the more cards you play in a particular time, the higher the building. And you multiply the height of the building times the number of pips in the square. So you're trying to optimize everything and build in all the valuable spaces with big buildings, but also build a long chain of buildings and build a lot of different buildings in different quadrants for a majority bonus, or build tall buildings for a majority bonus based on stories. So it's very straightforward, classic Knizia style, and I got to play it all at once. That's it. Playing almost nothing else. I got my copy of a GNC that I backed from Asmati Games by my favorite designer, Carl Chuduk. Right, designer of innovation, the best game of all time. Have not even broken the seal. Just no time to play anything. I did play Forest Shuffle, but I played it at Gen Con. And then immediately after that, I had one game session, played this a couple times and wrote it up. It's a fantastic combo-y style card game. Very good. But then my game group, well, people got sick. They were working. I was busy with this giant project in September that just occupied all my time for 11 days. My family got sick, just working on the preview. So no game playing sessions, which is a bummer. I'd love to preview things and I just didn't get to do so. So Yellow got me a review copy of Ancient Knowledge, which was sold at Gen Con ahead of Spiel, similar to Forest Shuffle, similar to Sunrise Lane, because Gen Con is the pre-Spiel for European publishers, trying to seed the market ahead of the big show. I didn't get to try it out. I've read the rules twice, and then game sessions fell apart for different reasons. It seems cool. Seems like it's a very combo-y driven game where you're building buildings and they age over time and they fall into your memory. So they come often with knowledge on the building and you have to use the knowledge or else it falls in the past and you are penalized for that because you let knowledge fall away. Durr. No, you want to use that knowledge to do other things and propel your society and build up all this other stuff. So it seems like a very cool concept. And maybe I'll play it someday. Hopefully, I really want to, but haven't done so yet. Publishers often send me things in advance to try out, like Helvetique sent me a copy of On the Road, a game by Leo Colavini and Gabriel Bubala, who designed London Bridge, which I reviewed, I think, last year. On the Road seems like a classic German style. You're getting cards, you're moving along a path as you're musicians going to a festival. You're trying to get different color tickets because you're going to multiply the scoring of those tickets as you go in different locations and fighting for spaces with different people as you're sort of moving around them and jockeying for position. Seems very straightforward and cool. Haven't even broken the seal. Same with The Art Project. It's a cooperative game with art by Vincent Dutray. It's a review copy from Lumberjack Studio. It's a cooperative game for 1 to 6. Florian Siriax and Benoit Turpin. Haven't got to try it. Seems very cool, but that's it. That's all I can tell you. I do have a designer diary from Vincent Dutray coming soon on BGG News, talking about that. Remy Mathieu, designer of Ancient Knowledge. He wrote a diary that's going live, I think, the Wednesday before Spiel opens. Had a lot of designers submit diaries this year, far more than normal. So you can go check out all the designer diaries and you can read it. Freedom and Frieza talking about his 5 items that he's releasing and sort of his general design philosophy. And Isra and Shay talking about the White Castle, kind of a sequel to the Red Cathedral, but not really. Peter McPherson talking about Fit to Print, which was just released on the US market. That will also be at Spiel. There's lots of designer diaries coming out. There's a link to all of them. You can go check them all out and see. I love publishing designer diaries because I love just the behind the scenes talk about how games come to be and what ideas are coming into someone's mind that they are trying to express through that game. Very cool. I love doing it. I just wish hinted designers submit them a little earlier and then they'd be spread out all through August and September instead of being published like 1 or 2 a day at this point, just because I'm trying to get stuff out before Spiel so people get more information and they can judge things. That is my cross to bear. All right. Maybe I need to be a little more hardline and say no diaries submitted after this date and no other information, and I'm not listing pre-orders, and I don't know, do something where I can get the data and have it all, or you can't submit it at all. That'd be very hard-nosed, very, very cruel. But it's a free service for publishers who get to advertise their games. So, I don't know. I want to get all that information out there and not make it too hard, but also then it's a lot of work. In any case, there's an overview of the Spiel preview, why I haven't previewed anything, bunch of diaries so you can go find out what some people have in mind for the games they've created. Gives you a little head start here. And traditionally in this video, well, 2 things. I've got a mea culpa for all the publishers who have sent me review copies of things that I have not played yet. I am sorry. I hope to play things at Spiel itself or afterward and then start doing videos at that point and write-ups when I have more time and things get back to normal. Second thing normally in this video is like most anticipated games, which feels a little weird because I have all these anticipated games right in front of me. What do I need to go to Spiel for and get more? That seems a little ridiculous. And when I go through the preview, it's 1,200 items, and it's hard to focus a lot of time on every one because usually as I'm working on the preview and adding them, I just put it on there and then I forget about it and move on to the next thing. I'm not really processing whether I want to play it or not. So often it's just like, there's the data and stick it in, and then dozens more things come in. It's like composting, where it just piles all on top of each other, and then it falls out of my mind completely because it's just lost. That's my inbox as well. Stuff turns into compost. Things just pile up on top of it. So it seems weird to do a most anticipated game thing, but then I thought I'd do it anyway. Mainly because my tastes, I think, are a little different from the average BGG user. So shine a little light on some games that might not get attention. Here's a link to all 42 items that I have tagged as either must-have or interested in. I'm not going to get those 42 items, but they caught my eye. And at this point, I've also accepted that, of course, I'm not going to get to play everything that I would ever want to play. And I have to be realistic about my available time and, let things go. It's easy to tag something as must-have or interested, but actually learning the rules and getting it to the table, well, I have seen that is not as easy as I might want because I have these things and there just hasn't been the time or the players going to the table. All that said, I made a list anyway. You can check out the 42 in particular, but I thought I'd talk about a few of them. Big interest in abstract strategy games, for example, and so those always catch my eye. There's a couple by Clemens Gerhard's Triad and was it Flugorad, which has a board with divots in it and marbles, and you're trying to make a connected path of marbles. And how you move in the game, there's this wooden wheel, sort of looks like on a water mill, where you put this device on the board and then you apparently rotate it and it moves all the marbles in those slots to new positions. So you're moving your marbles and the opponent's marbles, shifting things around. I don't know. That's just the overview from looking at it, and it seems very cool. And Clemens Gerhard's stuff is always fantastically well made, so want to check it out. There's a game called Elios, E-L-I-O-S, from Helvetic and Philippe Prou, who does fantastic wood games, and you're trying to get rid of your colored sticks. And there's different rules. We're trying to play your colored sticks. You're playing them sort of in a circle, different heights. I don't know all the details, but it triggers me immediately where I say, this concept of simple rules where you got colored sticks and you want to get rid of them all. And there's restrictions on how you can do things. And those little complications where it's simple components and a simple, straightforward goal and little tweaks on how things work, that's the type of game that really gets me these days. Not something with a ton of rules, all these details on how to do stuff. I got to learn 5 different subsystems, and there's points being scored here, there, and everywhere. Not the type of thing I'm looking for. It's really interesting reading Friedemann Friese's diary, talking about what he's doing, because his design philosophy seems very much my style, where I like games where you have these sort of big moves where things happen and it's very dramatic and it feels satisfying to get this goal. Right? Innovation is my favorite game. Lots of big satisfying moments, also really depressing moments when things go terribly and you don't get the right cards and it sucks and you hate it because the cards just didn't fall your way or whatever it happened and you had all your stuff stolen and this, that, and the other. But it's dramatic and it has moments that stick with you, and it feels like there's more of a story playing the game with the person you're playing with because you are really interacting with them. And it's not just, I score a few points here and a few points here, and I squeeze out a few more points than you and I win. That's not the thing I'm interested in. What else? Passo, new game by Stefan Mulheiser, who sold Stefan Spiele to Helvetic. Passo is a 2-player game. You're trying to get pieces to the other side of the board, but as you move things off the board, the tile the piece was on leaves. So the board vanishes over time. How does this even work? I don't know, but it seemed cool. So I've got the abstract strategy vein of things. I also have just the general card game things that I'm interested in, because I tend to love card games more than anything, because again, it's usually straightforward rules, simple goals, lots of interaction. You get the mystery of the card, what cards are dealt all the time, and you have to figure out how to do stuff with them. It's this challenge to take on, and then you get a new hand and a new hand and a new hand. So you get surprises and then the resolution of those surprises. So making a list there's Zero Hero and Synergy and Make 10. It's a new version of this Japanese game that caught my eye several years ago, but haven't been to Tokyo Game Market in a while. So what's this one? Surfasaurus Max. Very interesting game where you're playing cards. You're each playing a card, and you're trying to make a poker hand, and the cards in the best poker hand score. So you're sort of cooperating with other people to try to score, and the lower numbers score better, but of course higher numbers are probably going to be in the better hand. So you're trying to do all this and figure out how things go on, but it's, again, sounds very interactive with other people. Everyone matters who you're playing with, and you play with different people, and they're going to have different styles of how they play. So you get a different play experience with that same simple rule set. Other similar things along those lines. Sixto, new design by Stefan Bendorf, designer of Quicks. It seems like a very quick style game where you're rolling dice and marking off things on a sheet of paper. There's colors and numbers, and you're trying to mark off as many things as possible in the rows and in the columns, and everyone has a chance to mark off every time things roll. Again, straightforward. It's a new design from Kendi, a publisher that Bendorf is with, along with Reinhard Staup and Franz Jutta. They all went from NSV, sorta. Started Kendi Games. All 5 titles seem right up my alley. It's like 20-minute playing time, simple rules, you dive right into them. There's a game called Wave from Cosmos. I forget the designer right now. And it's a cooperative game about trying to play all the cards. You're trying to ride the wave where you're playing in colors, you're playing in numbers, trying to do things together without talking. There's lots of cooperative games out there of that style where you're trying to do something together. I tend to really like those. There's also a number of cooperative deduction games out there. There's ones from a Korean designer, whose name I don't remember, and it's called Irresolvable. I'll have to put the name on the screen. I forget. There's 2 of those, and the cooperative deduction games seem very cool. There's also a card game from Zoc called Stick zu Stick, I believe, that's also sort of cooperative deduction, where it's a trick-taking game, and one person knows the murderer and knows the weapon that was used in the murder, and the other players only get information as cards are played in a trick, because all the weapons of the suspect, the murderer, and the weapon are trump. So you get information over time. Trying to solve things. It seems like a very bizarre concept, but I'm in. So cooperative deduction games. There you go. Whale Street, a game from another Korean publisher that's a stock market game. The baseline description seemed very interesting and interactive. And there you go. That's all I have to offer. Whale Street. You can click on the link in my choices and find out more information. Nuts A Go-Go. It's a game from Itten, Japanese publisher. And I've heard lots of people talk about this game. Itten does great small stuff. Usually it's very artistically designed. It's very physically appealing with the components it uses. They had a game, Viking Seesaw, that came out in Japan. Now that it's out in English, it will be a Spiel, where it's a 2-player game by Knizia. Yeah, I know, Knizia. I keep going back to him. where you're balancing in the seesaw, you've got all these different shaped objects and you're trying to balance them on your side of the ship. And when it goes down, well, then the other player is going to place things. And if stuff falls off the ship, you have to take cargo out of it, and that's added to your hold. And you win by putting all your stuff on the ship or by having less stuff left when all the cargo is gone. So very cool, very straightforward. Anyway, that was what I was talking about. Nuts a Go-Go. That game, you got a box with all these different shaped wooden bits. They're just all mixed together, all the same color. They're in the box. You're all diving in, saying go. I don't know how much time elapses, but you're just trying to grab lots of stuff. I think you can use only one hand. You put it in the supply, put it in a little cup, whatever it is. You're trying to get all this stuff. Time runs out, you have to stop. And then someone's going to pull out a piece and say, we have this. Does anyone else have this? And as long as people have this and can give it up, so you have to discard it, you stay in the round. If not, they're out. And so you're trying to collect as many different things as possible, but maybe you notice some things aren't taken very much. And so you're trying to offer one of those things and hopefully knock lots of other people out and try to stay in. It seems frenetic and weird, interactive, something I could definitely teach to a lot of people, something that my in-laws might actually play because you can teach the rules in a second. So it's also a different style real-time game that's not just about perceiving something or necessarily building something quickly. That's most real-time games seem to come down to those two categories. And for years, I've been wanting to do a video on all these different real-time games because I love them, but usually people I play with either hate them or just like tire of them quickly. I want to talk about real-time games another time. Garden Guest. It's a design by Stephen Glenn coming from Van Ryder Games, and it's a new edition of his game Loomis that came out in, I think, 2015 from Cosmos, where you were playing with a partner and trying to build a path across a board to connect opposite sides. So similar goal as in Hex, right? Standard Hex game where one person is trying to connect these sides, the other is trying to connect these sides, and you're playing cards, but you've got different... I forget, lighthouses and Loomis that you're connecting. I forget all the details because I haven't played it since 2015. But I loved playing it. It's a very different style, playing with a teammate where you can't communicate with them. I love games with limited limited communication. And that's what you're doing here, where you're trying to work together with this person, but you can't just talk about what you want to do because, of course, number one, other people would hear about it. And number two, you just can't because you have to speak through the cards, put everything together that way. So there you go. I don't know. General overview of what I'm interested in. You got a link of other stuff there, but it generally falls into those categories where it's like card games, abstract strategy games, Reiner Knizia games. There's a game called Blem coming out where it's sort of press your luck with dice as you're trying to move cats through the solar system. There's a game Havalandi where you've got a hot air balloon floating around the area and you're trying to build patterns and connect things. Again, the Knizia card games, abstract strategy, and then I don't know other stuff. Japanese and Korean designs, usually because they feel somewhat different. They're not often just it's a king who died and you're trying to find a replacement for the king, or it's a fantasy world, with high fantasy or something in space or all that stuff. I'm usually not interested in that. I want something else, like a stock market game. We can do that. Or there's a game from I think, Taiwanese publisher where it's a cooperative game where you're trying to keep someone from committing suicide. And they're only going to have it in demo, and it seems very extreme, and it might not even be on demo. But it's also this psychological game where you're trying to achieve this fantastic goal, and it seems like a high-stress situation, a very different sort of subject matter. I'm curious. I want to see that. I don't know if I'll have time. I'll see as much as I can see. If you're going, hope you see everything that you want to see. I don't know. You can check out my list, which I've already pointed to and probably can't link now because you can only have a limit of 5 links. Maybe you can talk about your 2 most anticipated games. I'll stick to 2. I listed 42. You get 2. That's it. But maybe you got something that stood on the list to you, but I might have missed, especially if it's my style. I'd love to hear it from you. So Hope you comment. Thanks.